Are you guilty of the number one mistake that multifamily operators make on mixed-use buildings? Hey guys, this is Naomi Brown, and today we're going to talk about mixed-use buildings and evaluating the commercial tenant within those mixed-use buildings. I've definitely seen some mistakes from investors here, so let's talk about what to avoid when evaluating your commercial tenants. The number one thing that you want to keep in mind with an evaluation of a commercial tenant is the credit worthiness of that tenant. So for instance, if you have Starbucks as your tenant, obviously pretty safe to assume they're in good standing position. But in contrast, even if you have a local business, you can still evaluate their credit worthiness from different factors like how long have they been in business? Do they have an established customer base? What is the company financials like? And so on. So making sure that the business that you're dealing with has a very strong footing is an important first step in that evaluation. The second thing that you want to keep in mind is the terms of the lease itself. So commercial leases are for much longer than residential, or should be. And because of that, you need to make sure that there's built-in escalations. If you don't have those, then you're not keeping up with the inflation and you're falling behind. You need to evaluate how long those lease terms are. If it's up in a year, they could be going somewhere else and you don't have any idea what their plans are. So the length of the lease, does it have renewal options? How sticky that tenant is. So if they're a business like a coffee shop or a restaurant where they have a lot of built-in equipment and a custom design, that tenant is very sticky, meaning it's hard and expensive for them to go somewhere else. Whereas if you have someone who's more of an office user, that's pretty easy for them to pick up and go somewhere else. So understanding how that is playing out with your tenant is an important step as well. A third thing is the market viability, and this is something that is really missed by multifamily operators because it's not really a piece of your worry. So if you're a commercial tenant, let's take for example a jewelry store. If that's an industry that is going online more and more and less in person, that change in the industry is eventually going to catch up with your business, and you either have to change your business model or else you may go out of business. So understanding how the market conditions is affecting your tenant is an important step in being able to quantify how solid of a tenant they're going to be. So the biggest mistake that we see multifamily operators make is quite simply not understanding how to appropriately account for the risk of commercial tenants. There's a lot of buildings out there that the commercial space on the ground floor might sit vacant for years because they lack adequate parking, or they don't have sufficient visibility, or different components that a commercial business needs in order to operate in that space. So if you don't have those things, it could sit vacant for many, many years. And you need to be careful not to include that in your potential income when you're underwriting it if those factors are applicable to your building. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes you can rent the space fairly easily, but overall, it does take substantially longer to rent commercial spaces than it does for residential. I need to make sure you account for that if it's going to be vacant for 6 months to a year before that you sign a 5-year lease. So make sure you're doing your homework and carefully evaluating those commercial tenants with these components. And if you need help, feel free to give us a call. We're happy to give some advice and input anytime.